today to this day is devoted to celebrating students' work in their senior exhibitions. Today we're going to hear from Mary Ellen Sharp on the art and craft of flint knapping. And our panelists today are myself, George Deans, Dan Stillman, Simon Robertson, Maya Parley, Paige Murphy, Ann Heisey, and Wendy Littlefield. What we're going to do is we're going to have Mary Ellen do a presentation. There'll be a time afterwards for the panelists to question if they so desire, and then we'll open it up to the audience to question. After the questions are done, we'll ask the audience to be excused as well as the presenter, and then we will deliberate. After the deliberation, we will bring the presenter back in and go from there. Okay, is there any questions? She's going to have 15 minutes to make a presentation, and I'll let her know when the time is there. There is no door to close. Unless you... Dan
always finds a way.
I didn't know if you were going for a roll of tape and going to make one.
Gap shaped door shut.
Okay, Mary Ellen, it is all yours.
All right. Hi, my name is Mary Ellen Sharp. Welcome to my senior X. For my senior X, I did flint knapping, which is the art of making stone tools, spearheads, and gun cases. To begin, this is a quote that I got from the book that I got from my mentor. To most people, arrowheads and the like carry an aura of prehistoric adventure, lost crafts, deadly weapons, and forgotten relationships in nature. Stone tools are therefore almost irresistible to anyone with even a passing interest in the past. Which leads to my why flint knapping. When I first got into this project, people thought it was odd that I was going to be hitting stones against each other and creating things that I wouldn't actually be able to use in everyday life. I mostly did it because I make stone tools because I want to be an archaeologist, and I wanted to understand how prehistoric people lived and worked. And second, because it's challenging and it's an enjoyable craft. It's partly for entertainment and partly for serious, like professional purposes and experimentation. And again, they're almost irresistible to anyone with a passing interest in the past, and I will actually be attending college for anthropology and historical preservation. So being able to identify flakes and tools in the field while I'm working will be beneficial stuff. My essential question is, how will learning flint knapping benefit me in my archaeological pursuits? This question I had some development problems with. At first I wanted to use flint knapping to know how I learn personally, whether it be by watching someone, by hearing someone, or by doing something myself, hands-on. But it evolved into something that I wanted to be able to use in my future and into my career. And so I decided to do something related to archaeology, which is one of my big interests in the anthro field. My journey. I started last summer with the Abbey Field Museum and did a field study with them. What spearheaded this idea was on the first day we were digging, and it was a lot of shell midden, which is what is most prominent around here on the coast. And it was sharp clam shells, and we were getting cut up on the arms and everything. And it was really a interesting task trying to get down to the stuff that we were trying to dig up, and we weren't looking for anything past the contact period, which is when the Europeans came over, which are beads, bifaces from that era. And we ended up finding actually a biface from the ceramic era, which is around 3,000 years old. And that showed me that that whenever they came across something, if the spearhead was even lying on the beach, they never let anything go to waste. And they always used what they could, and even if the tool was dull, they could pressure flake it and use soft hammer percussion to get it back to its original state for cutting and using as a weapon. My exposure and my education, I had at the Abbey Field School, they did lunches where you would go and you would listen to lectures. And at noon one day, I talked to Chris Sokolexis, and I also talked to Dr. Spees, who is actually one of my big role models in the field, about doing this as my senior X, and I said that it would be something that would be beneficial for me. And they actually had a field demonstration there, which is where I got my initial exposure to it. All right. I started out as a kid always having a passion for archaeology and digging things up. I would go out into my backyard and dig holes everywhere. There are actually little pitfalls in the backyard, back for where the grass grew in and I didn't fill in the holes. So I first started, my mom said I first started at the Boneyard in Walt Disney World. They have fossils, of course they're not real, but that you can dig up. They cover them with sand and dirt every day, pack them down, and give tools to the children. They aren't actual archaeological tools. You can't use a trowel in there because it'll damage the fossils. But I would spend hours upon hours digging there when I was a child. So that was one of my early exposure things to archaeology. And then another one, which we are lucky to have on this island, is the Abbey Museum. They have a wonderful children's program, which I would actually like to teach flint knapping to, because I know that going into it with zero knowledge and only having a set amount of time to do something is not enough time to learn flint knapping and to learn the complex art of it. And I hope to work with the Abbey Museum for their children's project, and that's actually where I first saw my first biface or arrowhead. I was in one of the exhibits there, and I fell in love with the Abbey, and I still am in love with the Abbey. So this is the Abbey Museum Field School. These are photos taken from one day, and up here you can see me. Up here you can see me. I actually found a broken point. A broken tip of a biface, and you would sift through the shells and the rocks and everything, and if you found something you had to put your hand under it because the grates that we were using were too large. They weren't the fine sifters, mostly because of all of the debris that we had from the shellmen. And this is my dig partner, Jennifer, and my dig head, Kate. And when we ended up finding the spearhead, we actually had to sit down and take a breather because it was one of the most emotional experiences in my life, because I love things like this, and being able to touch an irreplaceable piece of history was really special to me, and being able to learn how to make those things really interested me at that point, because not a lot of people do this, and so having this and being able to, again, identify flakes in the field, which are the pieces of debris that come off of the tool when you're making them. These are rather large flakes, and these are smaller ones. When you pressure flake, you can barely see them, but you can look at those. I'm not going to pass these flakes around because they are very sharp, so, but you can get a chance to look at them during the demonstration. Okay. Prior knowledge. I had zero prior knowledge. The only exposure I had to it was looking at things at the Abbey and being able to watch someone flint knap during the dig. And I wanted to know more, so that's why I did this project. And now my mentor. My mentor was Noelle Riley. So when I first met Noelle with my tools and everything. I didn't have her in mind as my mentor because I actually didn't know that she could flip map. So she was over at my house one day and was looking at my stuff and was like, hey, do you need a mentor for this? And I went, maybe, I'll have to check. Funny thing about that, because this is such a obscure craft, not very many people on the island in the community know how to do this other than the people who are connected with the Abbey, and they are very busy. They had a new exhibit open this year, so that's probably why they couldn't help me out more. But I was at my wit's end, and then I had a bright idea to ask Noelle, and she's been a family friend for years now, and I felt comfortable working with her, and this is her using her big girl pick on the day she was on. So, here's the process. Right, this is the first meeting, and what we focused on in this meeting was just talking about what I know about it and what we were going to go over in the meetings to come. So first we went over stuff like the bulb of percussion, the cortex, debitage, different percussion instruments, traditional tools for percussion, and I will go over those now. The bulb of percussion, I don't know if you can see it, but I do have an example. If you see this edge right here, you can see where it has been hit, so it will flake off of another rock. Yeah, I think part of it broke off when we were napping, but if you see this piece right here, this edge, that's the bulb where it was hit off of the rock to make a smaller piece so you can work with it easier. And this is the cortex, which is the outside of the rock. And that is very difficult to work with, I found. All right, debitage. So when you are flint knapping, there are a lot of flakes and things that come off your tool. So the things that fall onto the floor and the things that come off, the flakes, are called debitage. And it is extremely sharp and actually is very helpful in seeing like the different edges that you can create. I know that I had a very hard time identifying platforms and flaking them off because I was very scared. And so the pieces of debitage that I would get would be minuscule, whereas when Noelle did it, they'd be rather large. And that was using hard hammer percussion. So when you're starting with a rock, say this piece of obsidian, for example. I'm not going to do hard hammer percussion in this presentation, only because the spray from it is rather dangerous and will go everywhere. So, taking a rock, you want to find a platform and you work along a ridge. So, and when you find a ridge that you like or that will work, you want to hold it at an angle instead of going right down on it, because that will prove it will make for interesting results. This piece, actually, I did the straight down method and broke it in half. So I couldn't really work with it anymore. Using hard hammer percussion, there are many different tools you can use, but I ended up using rocks, which are more of the traditional ones. And then you can use large antlers, like the base of an antler, for hard hammer. Every single time you hit a piece of rock, you need to abrade afterwards, which means you're getting rid of all the tiny faults that could potentially break your piece or cause problems in your piece. Traditional tools, getting to that. These here are copper billets. These are soft hammer percussion, which means you're taking off smaller flakes and breaking the pieces off in smaller portions. For these, you mainly use antlers and smaller, softer rocks, but I did not have access to those things. I actually got this from Pierce, the Lifesaver, for pressure flaking mainly. And I found it's a lot harder to use the Antlers and to use those things for making these tools. It takes a lot more effort and a lot more strength behind the blow. But whereas with the copper billets, they're weighted in the front. So if you feel that, you feel how it's weighted in the front, and it makes it easier to follow through. I have two different types of abraders. I have a granite rock, which is coarse, and then I have this abrader that I actually got in the toolkit that I was provided with from the stuff I ordered it from, which was very helpful because I couldn't find any materials on island. All right. Let's see the tools. Oh, actually, no. This is the modern pressure flaker. And there's also a thing called an ichi stick. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. It's a much longer stick. They vary in size. And instead of just using it to flake off a piece, you put it under your arm, and you use the strength from your arm and from your body to pressure flake instead of using just your wrist and your forearm, because I found that I was really sore after the first meeting. So having an ichi stick is probably something I will invest in the future. All right, those are my tools. That's a close-up of the damage that you can do to copper tools because they're so soft. Even on stuff like obsidian, it will leave a mark on your copper billets. If you look up here at this hard hammer up in the left, you will see white on it, and that is from hitting it on the rocks. This is the second meeting. The first meeting, as I said, we only kind of went over one rocks we were going to be using, which were obsidian, chalcedony, which is this gray rock, and chert, which is the white rock that you are using now. The second meeting, we started napping. So I was not as confident as I'd like to be. I'm still not as confident, mostly because I think it's just, I'm scared of making a mistake, and I know that I'm at heart a perfectionist, and I have problems finishing art projects on time. So having something like this is going to be a difficult thing for me because everyone has their own distinct style, and being able to develop that is something that I really hope to be able to do. Okay, troubleshooting. If you hit right here, you can see that when we hit it, the percussion created these tiny little divots, which are hinges, and those are very difficult to get rid of. If you look up there, this hinge right here is actually a right angle, and being able to get rid of those is something that I'd like to learn in the future, because they will leave things on your tools that will make it look not finished. For example, this tool right here that I made, I ended up pressure flaking it a little bit too much, and I have this edge right here that I probably can't get rid of unless I make the tool smaller. Okay, the third meeting, I had an epiphany, I guess. We were working on this piece of obsidian right here, and I wanted to try soft hammer percussion. And so I began flaking it from this side, the side that I wanted to flake from. If you flake from this side, the flakes that will make the tool sharp will be on this side, and if you flake from this side, the sharp edge will be on the bottom side. So I actually ended up making a scraper tool, which is one of the most basic tools, and I'll demonstrate that. Because the edges are so sharp on the inside, we'll actually be able to grind away some of this hide. And this is what people use to clean out hides. So you can see I got some stuff off from the inside. This is what people use to grind off hides and clean meat before they eat it. So, okay, so I ended up making this, and I was feeling very confident that night, and made the tool that you are passing around right now, which is the Chalcedony point. I don't think I made it correctly, mostly because I don't have a lot of knowledge still on the project or on the art, but I think that I got the form right, so I think that's a big step for me. And I was a little more confident working with the Chalcedony, because it's a lot harder to break than any of the other rocks that I used. So whenever I made a mistake, it would be a lot less prominent in the tool than it would be in something like obsidian, which breaks like regular glass. Okay. All right. These are the products that I made, which are the scraper and the Chalcedony point. And you can see here there's a hinge right there, which we're going to get rid of again. This is a piece that I got off of that Chalcedony. And that has a gold percussion and cortex on it. So what? This is my essential question again. And this learning is important to me because, again, I'll be able to identify tools in the field, be able to identify flakes which will result in positive test pits, which will progress a dig and create more opportunities to find artifacts. Being able to understand how I work was originally my essential question, but I ended up being able to tie that into this as well. And this learning might be useful, more important to others, so I would actually like to teach child education after I'm done getting my anthropology degree in college. And where do I go from here? So again, I want to be able to work with the Abbey and teach children how to make these things. I mean, they're not going to be young children, obviously, because it's very dangerous, but teenagers and people like that. So there's a bigger community of people who love the craft just as much as I do. This is a Mayan eccentric, and I know it's a huge step, and it will take years and years to create something like that. But I want to be able to make points that I'm proud of and that I'll be able to use. And I am choosing between two colleges at the moment, University of Hawaii and the University of Mary Washington. And at those two schools, I'll be able to focus on different types of points. I'll be able to focus on the East Coast points at Mary Washington, which is what I've been focusing on right now. And then University of Hawaii, I'll be able to focus on stuff from Oceania and from the Pacific Islands. And I'd like to thank Noel, who is my mentor. I'd like to thank Mr. P and Mr. Stillman, who were my rocks throughout this project. Tons. Kate Bryant and Dr. Spies for introducing me to the project, the community and the Abbey, who supported me through this endeavor, and the panel. Time to do soft-hand presentation. Do one of you have the copper billets? Okay. I'm going to take a smaller piece. And it's really important to have protection when you're doing this. So what we used were safety glasses. It's important to have gloves because I remember before I got Noelle as my mentor, I didn't do anything with gloves, and I ended up cutting my hands a couple times. So I have long pants, and shoes that go up your ankles so you don't get any flakes in your shoes because that is painful. Great. So you see how it's weighted in front and follow through is really important. And you see all those flakes coming off are little pieces that might cause a problem in your piece. So. And because there are varying sizes, you can get varying flakes. So if I use this bigger tool, I'd be able to get a bigger flake off of it. Like this one. And this is a feathered edge, which is razor sharp. So you don't want to use bare hands on this. And then this is my pressure flaker. And this will get those tiny, tiny flakes that you saw in the plastic bag that I passed around. And this is why it's important to use leg protection, because flakes can go into your leg. And I learned that the hard way. So now that I've done that, I'll come around with this, and you can see how sharp this is and how thin. If you hold it up to the light, you can see how thin the edges are. And these are the little pressure flakes that I did, which produce smaller flakes, which refine the blade. And these are, the bigger flakes that I got with the bigger soft hammer percussion. Yeah, that's my senior X, guys. Thank you for coming.
Students on the panel, do you have any questions? Guest panelists, yes.
I know this wasn't, the history of all this was not a part of your study, but what do you imagine Native Americans, for instance, used when they didn't have sophisticated tools and archaeologists?
They would use rocks like this, and rocks that would fit into their hand easily, like oblong, heavy rocks, so they could follow through. And they would use these for hard hammer percussion, which takes off bigger flakes and breaks down a big rock, into something that you can use as a tool, or make into a tool. And for a soft hammer, they'd use larger antler pieces, usually bases of antlers, which would vary in size. And pressure flakers could consist of antlers that were sharpened to a point and used to pressure flake off the edges.
So they probably had favorite rocks that they held
Yes.
onto to fit their hands well.
Yes. And I mean, they could go out and pick one up and just flint knack where they were, but if I don't know the exact anthropology of it, but yeah, those are the traditional tools that they used.
Did it take you a while to learn how to read the rock?
Yes, I think I had a lot of trouble being able to read it as in, I knew what ridges to work along, but being able to hold it at an angle and being able to like know the rock and know what it would turn out like is very difficult and takes years to perfect, but I think I'm getting a lot more comfortable with it. Being more comfortable with it is a really big thing.
pigmints mostly.